copy.
Are you gonna read it? You know how to
You
read?
can, she asked you to. That's what it says in the first sentence, isn't it?
Please read at your meeting for November 10th.
Dear Mr. Elbrock, you forgot that part.
I was asked by Debbie Rodella, Representative Rodella, at the Taos Economic Development Committee meeting that she had over there September the 3rd, I believe. She asked for me to have a follow-up meeting after the end of the season, and so that's what this meeting is a follow-up meeting. The Coomers and Toltec retail employed 10 employees that were dedicated to retail in Chama and Antonito. Total earnings were $57,739.44. Hourly wage, average hourly wage is $9.30. Total taxes to the state of New Mexico, $683.32. Colorado, $609. New Mexico unemployment, $731.91. Colorado unemployment, $978.84. New Mexico workman's comp, $51.60. Colorado figures are different, and we didn't have what percentage that Colorado is what percentage is paid to Colorado for unemployment or workman's comp. Social Security paid by employees, $3,579.88, which employer matched. Medicare, $837.14 paid by the employees, which the employer matched. And total employer paid federal unemployment insurance was $273.42. That was our contribution to the states of New Mexico and Colorado in taxes paid by the 10 employees that we were dedicated to retail in Chama and Antonito. I have a letter that Mrs. Gray, Sandra Gray, sent me and asked me to read. I don't know if I'll read it in verbatim, but probably. I was really surprised that you are having a follow-up meeting on vendor concerns. After the remarks at the October Commission Board meeting, I felt all of your decisions were final and that your group had decided to not listen to those in Chama and Antonito that continually support this Coomers and Toltec Scenic Railroad. You stated that you will continue retail sales at both depots and at Osier. As yet, we have not heard what your numbers were for the season. That the Coomers and Toltec will send branded items, not logoed items, meaning anything that says C&TSRR, which could even include a rock. The vendors of both Chama and Antonito feel that you have gone over and above the original agreement that was made over 40 years ago and adhered to for 40 years. That is, Coomers and Toltec would not be in competition with private enterprise in order to have economic stability for the peoples of Rio Arriba and Taos counties in New Mexico and Conejos, Alamosa, and Archuleta counties in Colorado. We have asked for you to close the retail stores in both the Chama and Antonito depots. Although we feel that the Osier location should be leased out to private enterprise, I personally felt that we could compromise on that location. Coomers and Toltec receives grants from numerous entities and also tax dollars that as vendors we help pay. You have continued to use economic development funds and not improving the local area for those of us who live here or run a business here. As vendors, we believe in the right for private enterprise to be in competition with us, but when we have to buy your products and be in competition with you, the playing field is no longer level. Again, we ask for both retail locations be closed starting the 2015 season, lease out the Osier retail to private entity, or as a compromise, both Roger and myself are willing to help you in setting up a successful retail store at Osier. Spend more of your time getting people here and less on retail. More riders bring in more revenue for everyone. My personal business ended up being down 27% over the previous years, which was down from the year before that and the year before that. Without the revenue, I am unable to do extra little things I plan to do to help the Coomers and Toltec each year. I am now in Utah at a show giving out Coomers and Toltec brochures. Unfortunately, I have to use your 2013 brochure because of the low numbers you printed for 14 and your 15 is not ready yet. It should be ready the last week of the season in order to get it to riders immediately. Get your numbers back up to pre-2010. Did finish the cleanup you started in Antonito. Signs are still laying down in the train yard and some are broken. No cleanup all summer around engine 494. You stated you only ran 25% of the riders out of Antonito. Why? You offered incentives to the narrow gauge motel for selling tickets. Why was this incentive not offered to everyone? Vendors and businesses of all types in both communities. Was it because there were new managers in the area and you wanted to make yourselves look good, or what? Between my store and the visitor center in Antonito, we sell for you at least 10 rides per week. Hopefully one day we can all work together. There's some things in this I could address that Sandra's not here, so I'm not going to do it. For the incentives, I wasn't aware that we were offering any, but according to Lee, it was offered to everybody, although I wasn't aware of it, but I'm just one of the commissioners, so I guess I don't need to know. But anyway, and were you offered some incentive?
Barbara, do you remember?
I had a phone call from Lee, yes.
Okay,
I was
Yes.
offered 15% discount.
So the answer is yes.
okay. Debbie, how about you
No.
guys? No?
Can you go over that though, because I really don't, I'm not understanding what they're saying they were offered.
You could book direct, you were given a code
Uh-huh.
where you could go in online. Hi there.
Hi.
Keenan. But you had to do the work, you had to sell the ride, and then you would go in and actually book the ticket yourself, and the code that you were given gave you 15% discount. You could either pass it on to your customer, or you could sell the ticket at a 5% discount, a 10% discount, and retain the 5 or 10%, or the 15%.
But we would book it.
Yes,
Or
you have to book
if
it.
they were there with us.
Right.
And use the customer's credit card.
Right.
You don't even have to use your own cash, you just put their name in, their credit card information, and then use that code, and it discounts it down.
Uh-huh.
And then
Okay.
you decide how you're gonna offer it back to that customer.
I personally did not do it because my feeling is I sell motel rooms and not train tickets. I'm happy to answer questions.
And refer them.
And refer
give them
them.
phone numbers and where to go.
Yeah, but I tried doing other things. We had a business center at the motel once, and I'm a motel.
When I got the call, it was getting close to fall color season, and I
Right.
didn't
Yeah,
need
that
to
was the other
get, I
issue,
didn't need to,
Take on anything
Complicated.
else.
no, there was enough problem
So
already.
Billy, any reason why we were not approached?
I don't have any idea.
No idea? Okay.
I wasn't either. My
The only
restaurant.
information that I have is that the Corinne Williams said that somehow through emails or whatever, she thought she had notified everybody, but there was gonna be a meeting. Did you go to a meeting on it, or how was it addressed?
No, I was
Only
not,
thing was a phone call.
I was not invited to a meeting, no.
There was just I just got an email.
Then maybe it was an email or a phone call,
Yeah.
just sharing with everybody that they could participate in it. I do know that in the spring, she's actually going to have a meeting and bring all the merchants that want to participate in it together and get it set up.
And how were you notified of that? The meeting in the spring?
She will probably send out an email, and if she doesn't have an email, she'll make phone calls.
So you might give Lee your email address, Debbie, if you would. But yeah, I wasn't aware of it either. I didn't know anything about it. And as far as I know, I wasn't approached by it. But who knows who answered the phone at the restaurants. Retail sales will continue for the 2015 season at both depots, on the train and at Oger. We will address the logoed / branded items at the next commission meeting again. because of some of the concerns that you brought up, Roger, with your, on the video. So that will be addressed again at the commission meeting in January.
I think that's a great idea, because if we are able to prevent confusion, then you prevent all the negative stuff. You know, I listened to the video again, and I think the commissioners were obviously surprised I would ask that question. But, you know, so to address it. Okay.
Yeah, it will be addressed again at the January commission meeting.
Thank you.
Where Mrs. Gray talks about competing, and I know she's talking about public funds that we get as competing against the retail merchants. All of our funds are capital improvement funds only. They are not, we do not buy retail out of the money we get from the legislature. All the retail that we buy comes from our ticket sales. None of the public money is used to buy any retail items. It can't be used for that. It's strictly capital improvements, track maintenance, building maintenance, car maintenance, etc.
And just for clarification, that comes out of the severance tax bond fund, which is oil and gas money.
Correct.
I don't know any of the businesses in Chama that are contributing to the severance tax bond fund.
No. None of them do. And that's about all I have. If there's any questions or comments?
I just have a couple of things to say, and I'm sorry that Sandra's not here, but because I've let her speak her mind and say what she has to say, but I think she's misrepresenting the fact that she's representing all vendors. And I have another letter, and she states, I am speaking on behalf of all vendors in Antonito and Chama. I think that's an incorrect statement for her to make, because clearly there are people on both sides of the fence, if you will, and that I'm a vendor. I don't sell gifts, although I could, but I can tell you by name that Jim Martins does not agree with this stance. And there are others that would prefer I not mention their name, because they don't want to get involved in the fray, that don't agree with this stance. So for her to say repeatedly that she's representing, that this is the opinion of all vendors in Chama and Antonito is an incorrect statement. Number two, back to the 40-year thing, and I'm totally beating a dead horse. I don't remember any statements stating, and I printed out the rules for the internal organization of the Commerce and Toltec Railroad Scenic Commission. I see nothing in here stating that retail sales can't, or you're precluded from finding other ways to raise revenue for the railroad. Now you can come to me tomorrow and say, Kim, we're going to build a motel, and I would say, you know, I'm not real happy about it, but go for it. If it means economic stability for the railroad, then have at it. And I think finally, and the most important point that you brought up today was that you provided 10 jobs. I can't say I provided 10 jobs. I provided 4, and directly related to the railroad, but I can't say I provided 10. So I think we have to look at that in that the end result of retail sales is that 10 people had a job that may or may not have a job otherwise. So kudos to the railroad for that. And on that happy note, I will get off my soapbox.
And wasn't there at one point somebody that was selling off a vendor cart at the depot?
When the railroad first opened, Pat Garut had a little cart that Esther Diak pushed out onto the freight deck, sold from that cart, pushed it back in the freight deck, got on the train, sold concessions on the train, same stuff she was selling, t-shirts, postcards, shot glasses, bells and whistles. Went to Osier. Now, at that time, Osier was not, you went through the food line and you ate outside. There was no gift shop at Osier. So that's when she got to take her break. And then the train from the other side, same thing. They would push out a little, it wasn't a little cart, that was a big cart. And she would push it out. That was from day one. So there's always been, I shouldn't say always been, there's been a history of retail sales all the way back to the inception of the railroad. There's been commissioners that have stated we're not going to allow retail sales, but those commissioners are gone and things change. And I think that as important as a railroad is to this community, that they need to be able to change policy and look at other sources of revenue. And I, for one, have been, I'm not beating my own drum, but I sat before the LFC and had them point blank tell me, we're not going to continue to fund you at this level. You need to find other sources of revenue, whether that be increased ticket sales, different rides, renting out the depot for parties. You know, you need to really start, and this has been, I've been off the property 8 years, 6 years. So I know that it's a concern for the LFC. The other side of that coin is that you were determined, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but at that hearing, the railroads determined what to be what they call an enterprise fund. So that that means that even though you're a state-owned entity, the money that you earn does not go back into the general fund. It becomes your revenue to do what you need to keep your entity up and going. And as was pointed out, you know, all of the museums in the state receive money from the general fund, not necessarily from the tax bond severance, that one, oil and gas money, the pork belly, that one, from the pork belly bucket. And for capital improvements, because that's all that money can be used for, is capital improvements. But yet they are allowed to keep their earnings from entry fees, and they have a gift shop. And they keep all that too. So I think that, you know, we need to understand that the state, and I'm speaking only for New Mexico, but that the state looks on the railroad as an enterprise fund, and so in that capacity, they can keep the revenue that they've earned.
You know, I have said for the many years that I've been involved in retail, that retail is a numbers game. If you get enough people and you got decent stuff to sell, you're going to sell stuff and you're going to make money. And Roger and I have proven that to be true over many years. And I think the focus here, as opposed to competition with the railroad and the merchants, needs to be on the railroad doing what they need to do to get us some ridership. We've been going steadily this direction, and we should be going this direction. I mean, just listen to the government. They tell you how things are getting better. So, you know, I would like to hear at the January meeting what sort of a plan the commission is laying out for generating better ridership, because that will help your motel,
Absolutely.
your retail business, my retail business, and my lodging. That's what I'd like to hear
I
at the
think
January meeting.
we'll probably have a plan by then, won't we, Lee? You know, that's the last 2 seasons, that's been our problem, is we've lost our marketing director. We lost in 2013, we lost our marketing director in May. We didn't get one hired until August. We lost her in June, and we brought Lee on in August. Was it August, Lee, that you started?
1st of September.
1st of September. At least Lee is local. He has an interest in the community. He's not going to be working out of Albuquerque or wherever. And I think that's going to make a big improvement. And I think that we'll probably have a plan laid out. Our new brochure should be out by the first of the year.
And those brochures are wonderful when they're distributed. But what little traveling Roger and I do, we always look for the Cooper's and Voltec brochure, and we don't ever find them.
And that's, we have a company that distributes those brochures. And I assume that we give them a list of where they need to distribute them.
Somebody needs to follow them around and see if they're doing it.
That's true, and I have been in touch with them. We've expanded the areas where logistically we want to put the brochures in. I'm also printing this coming issue of brochures. I'm printing 200,000, whereas we started with 110,000, and then we added a few more on. It wasn't enough.
Step in the right direction.
Speaking of brochures, 2006, 2007, Barb and I took a big trip. And obviously taking photos, enjoying the scenery, but our number one goal was checking brochures, since we pay a company to put them out. Elmer was able to get me a list of where they were supposed to be. And I think out of 40 some on the list that we went to, we found 2.
Oh, bad.
Oh,
Well, I know that I've had to haul brochures to Alamosa Chamber of Commerce twice this past year.
I have a regular customer who comes and visits me every year and picks up brochures from me to take to AAA in Denver.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're really lacking is getting the brochures distributed. Well, number one is getting them out in a timely manner. It was April before we had them out this year, or 2014, I think, April or May before we had them ready. And so we're going to be 4 months ahead on that, and hopefully we can get them distributed.
Our brochure is actually going to print this week, at the end of this week.
Good news.
And the other brochure, the schedule will remain the same. The only thing that changed in the old brochure is the ticket price from Chama, Osier, Chama, and Antonito, Osier, and Antonito went up $5. Everything else remained the same.
I
But
ship
still,
packages every week off of our website, and I always throw a brochure in there. Hopefully, some of them come back.
yeah, exactly.
But it's spreading the word. You got to
Spreading the
market
word.
it.
And I think that word of mouth probably does more good than every ad that we've ever used for advertisement. I think word of the mouth is what.
So if we have 50,000 riders spreading the word,
That's
just
right.
think how much better off we'll be.
That's right. I
Go
agree.
for it.
I agree.
and I totally agree with Barbara about, we really need to get ridership back up. I was down about 8%, and part of it was we had such a bad winter, so they did my snowmobilers, but, even if I break out the May to October, we were down. And we were down, not down in revenue, but down in numbers. One of the things that I did was offered a 25% discount on the second night. Try to encourage people to stay another night, but, let's be honest, we need to, it needs to be an enjoyable experience to stay another night and I'm not sure I'm gonna do that again this year.
The greatest percentage of my reservations are two-nighters.
Most of
I
them-
get few one-nighters.
Most of them were, and I just thought I would give it a try, and I did get some people that, only had a reservation for one night. But, when I told them, well, if you want to stay a second night, we'll give you a 25% discount off the rack rate, because they take the rack rate back up, because they usually had a 10% discount because they were AAA or something, but, I need to rethink that, but I think the economy as a whole is still a little soft, regardless of what the government's telling us.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think it's still just a little off, and so anything that you all can do to, and certainly getting the brochures printed before April would be helpful. But it's certified as such a crapshoot, and I'm sorry, Lee, I have a long history with them. You have got to stay on them. You're paying for those brochures to be distributed. They contract out the distribution, and 2 out of 40. Where are you paying them? And I know that it's a huge part of your marketing budget because it's not inexpensive, but I've never been a fan of certified, and that's
fine.
that's why.
Since I'm documenting this and I expect I'm gonna get asked for copies, I'm not trying to cause an argument. As far as the 40-plus year agreement that Sandra's talking about and that I talked about, I can talk about 1997 forward. I can't talk about before that. George was hammered and was not allowed and had to stop selling postcards and pins because it was retail. The Hickory during their powwow down here had to take all their retail off the tables. The Friends had to quit selling their retail of only Friends logoed merchandise. And the one that's most important to me is 97, 98, when I was dealing with Pat Garou, George Bartholomew, and the Railroad Commission. We were told by all three that we would not be able or would not be allowed to sell retail on railroad property in Antonito or Chama. And the commission also brought that up when my contract came up. So there was an agreement there, and the commission, as of today, as far as I know, has never taken a vote to say, let's change it.
But did they
And-
take, I'm sorry, Roger, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I don't know if they have to or not. I'm just speaking to what Kim said, I'm not arguing.
Yeah,
And, the bottom line is, Sonia is telling me that the Vigil family, the older guys, are really upset because that was part of the original agreement. There would not be any retail. So for the video, there's the other side of the story.
And I don't know that, I've never seen anything written.
Nobody once has told me there was anything written. It was an agreement with the people. And I guess Mr. Vigil pushed really hard to get it done. Wasn't one of the Vigils even the original mayor?
Yes.
But they were very involved in it, and Ernest and Sonia are telling me that the entire Vigil family's upset. Go by and see them. Because that was not what they agreed to, that was not the promise that was made. Now, that has nothing to do with today. Do you need to make changes? And do Barb and I make changes? Does Kim make changes? Of course. My argument, basically, biggest part of my argument is twofold. One, if the commission, I know for a fact I did it, so if the commission would have a real concession car and do Osier correctly, they would make a lot of money. That's one. And number two, if they're going to change what's assumed or what most people agree is a 40-year agreement, they should have brought it up and let everybody know and said at the meeting, we're changing this by unanimous vote. Then nobody would have an argument. So I think it's the method more than the item.
One thing that we are looking into, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, is we're gonna allow vendors, merchants in town set up in the railroad yard daily. And that's something we're talking about doing is, you know, like if you want to set up a little table down there and sell t-shirts off of it, you'll be able to. Still something we're talking about. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it's something we're looking into.
And like I said, I think your idea that they're going to, I can see the same thing happening again next year, and that's why I brought it up at the last meeting, that's why I'm bringing it up again right now, and I want it to be on the video. If you are going to do the retail, and you are, I don't think anybody's questioning that. It seems like there was an agreement it was going to be Cumbers Toll Tech. In fact, as Peter brought up, or Dan loved the flying logo. What is a logo? You said you're going to do logo, so that's why I brought it up. And once again, thank you. We can get a better description in January. What is a logo? And I think that'll satisfy a lot of people. And I know it'll satisfy me because then there's been real communication. And that's all I'm asking for.
And that's, you know, to me, looking at this as a whole, that's the crux of this whole problem, is the lack of communication.
Absolutely.
Things that are said and done, and it's so much easier. It may appear to be easier to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, but that's not the case this time, I don't think. But and while we're on logos, unless somebody's changed it, RGRPC is the only one that has permission to use that flying grand font from the UP. But we haven't made an issue of it because, so you're gonna have to be real careful when you start, defining boundaries on logos and who has the right to use what, because I still have the letter from the UP giving Rio Grande Railroad Preservation Corporation only to use the flying grand font. So, that's another can of worms that you're gonna open, but I think as long as you communicate, if you talk to a can of worms, then we're all gonna be okay.
I think Kim just nailed
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
All it is communication.
I agree. Yeah, I think that, and I admit that we have been lacking on the communication part. It's just like, Roger, if you're standing outside and decide to go to the post office and don't say anything to Barbara and she starts looking for you, you just, well, I'm gonna go to the post office. And I think it's just something that we just overlooked, just didn't think about it.
Exactly.
But we have been lacking in that, so.
It's not a new issue.
No, it's not. I was guilty of it as GM, and you just, it's a difficult property to manage. because there are so many ancillary people and businesses and entities involved. But, in the day of email and everything else, there's absolutely no reason
No
why
reason,
we
exactly.
can't all, we don't have to respond to every email, but if you just, there's some kind of distribution list that we're on, and we, know that this is happening, or know that this is a decision that you've made, then I'll crawl back in my can of worms and deal with my own.
Well, Billy, I'll sit here in front of the camera and say, John Bush and I have had numerous conversations about how we resolve these issues. And we are going to get them resolved to everybody's benefit. When I came aboard, I said we were gonna have the brochures done by a certain date, we're gonna have them done by a certain date. We're gonna get these issues resolved too, and then part of it is the communication side of it. In January, we're gonna come up with I would say, a reasonably extensive list of the things that we would propose that we do to help the community both here in Chama and Antonito.
Is that going to be one of your first emails that you're going to send out? Tell us what you plan on?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be glad to hear it.
You'll receive it prior to the commission meeting, so that you'll have time to review it and discuss it.
Excellent.
For example, one of the things we've talked about doing, and Ed and I talked about this the other day, was we're going to run the Columbus Express, which comes back midday. We're going to give the bus driver instructions to give the guests or the riders the option to get off the bus on Main Street Terrace up in front of the malls, instead of bringing them down to the bottom of the parking lot and say, if you folks would like to stop for a few minutes and shop in our local shops, we're going to let you off here, and then you can come down to the parking lot. And that way we're not setting it up where they immediately think they got to get in their cars and leave. We're just trying to develop all kinds of different mechanisms to make this thing work.
Thank you, Lee, that's communication.
And
If it's a good idea or a bad idea, it has no value, doesn't matter. The idea is, it's communication.
And
Thank
the
you.
merchants may say, it really doesn't make a difference whether you let them off up on top or down below, but if that's what we need to do, we'll do it.
Thank you.
I did see, past couple of years, we did have a bus driver that did that. And everybody got off the bus, they walked around town for all of 20 minutes, got what they needed, and was very happy.
Yeah.
So I would think that would be a very
Option,
successful.
yeah.
Something else too, Debbie, along that same line, this year, we had a tour bus that got to town like by 9 o'clock, and instead of just herding everybody together right down in the train yard, people were encouraged that were on that tour to come up and visit the shops. I had a lot of them. As the railroad is promoting tours, if they were to mention to these tour operators that, we have shops in town, and, if your people get to town like at 9 o'clock, they're free to roam around and visit the town a little bit, and the train doesn't go away until 10. So, that would give us a little exposure in the mornings too.
And another comment is kind of irrelevant to this meeting, but I do feel that the people that are up visiting the merchants feel the pressure of getting down there as if the train is going to leave.
Yes.
I think if they knew that this train is not going to pull out until 10 sharp, it would put them at ease. And I don't know, I know they're told to be down there for the bus at a certain time and all, but it doesn't give them a lot of time with the shops. And if the train literally isn't leaving till 10, I don't know why.
Yeah, I play a video to promote a video that we sell in our shop. And sometimes the soundtrack of the video blows the whistle and they bolt for the door.
Yeah, they hear the whistle for the 10
So,
minute and,
Yeah,
And another thing we're looking at is, and this will take cooperation with the chamber, is to have a envelope that their tickets will be inserted in the envelope, and on that envelope, everybody can put their advertising on that envelope. So that when they get their tickets, they have an envelope that has
where to get what.
where to get what.
Very, very similar to a jacket that you used to get from the airlines
Exactly.
with the ticket in it.
Exactly. It'll be like that. We're gonna have to cooperate with the chamber. because the chambers, there's gonna be a cost, $5 an ad, I don't know, but the chamber can't do it. We, the railroad, can't do it either. We can't have all this printed up. I mean, there's no way we can have 35,000 envelopes printed up with everybody's name on it. So it'll be a cooperative effort. Maybe we could buy the envelopes and the chamber sell advertising on it.
And what we've talked about doing, Billy, because of that same thing that you just talked about the printing of them, was we were gonna be suggesting to both the chambers, Conejos and Chama, that they come up with a coupon kind of a piece of advertisement. It'll actually be stuffed in the envelope, and we'll have our ticket agents stuff these envelopes with these coupons every day before they give them to the writer. And so that way, you as a merchant can decide, you want to do it the whole season, you want to try it for a couple of weeks or a month, work it out with the chamber, and then when we're out of those coupons, the chamber says they're not doing it anymore, then that's one of them that does not go in the envelope.
Well, it sounds like there's some ideas afloat. I'm pleased to hear that.
Yeah, something surely needs to be done, though.
And I'm gonna correct my statement. We may have sold the commission, I'll check. That Flying Grand font only sold everything else. I'll check into that. Can't remember, but I remember UP being very, very adamant about only the railroad operator being able to use that font.
Yeah, UP's very, very
Very
restrictive.
possessive.
I have a license with UP, my friend Scotty did also,
Yeah.
and it is, they're very, very
It's
restrictive.
a sir, yes, sir type of agreement. Because they have nothing to lose if they tell you no.
No, but they seem to be reasonable when you apply, and I've never had a problem, Scotty never had a problem. But they're very restrictive, don't do it without their permission.
Right, exactly.